Welcome back, everyone. It's John Wade Boggs fan. It's Friday night. Hope everyone has had a good week. So about a month ago, maybe, as part of one of my videos, I had mentioned the big trade at the time of Francisco Lindor going from the Cleveland Indians to the New York Mets. And I raised the question, not that I really have many Lindor cards, wasn't really, not really into him as a to collect, but what that trade may do to his card values, whether it be, no real change, whether moving to a larger market may give him more spotlight and maybe more interest in his cards and yada, yada, yada. So this video isn't quite on that subject, but it has to do with Lindor and some other players. And that is, if you're a player collector, what do you do if your favorite player changes teams, either through a trade or via free agency? And I guess there's a couple ways you can go about it, and this isn't a video to give advice. It's just a video for me to give thoughts on different aspects and to make maybe you guys think, if you are a PC, collect a certain player, what your thoughts may be if your favorite player changes teams. And I'm going to use a couple other YouTubers as an example, as well as myself. So the one that comes to mind is the recent trade, and I think it's official or gone through, is Nolan Arenado from the Colorado Rockies to the St. Louis Cardinals. And Ken's Cardboard is a big Rockies fan, but he's also a big Nolan Arenado fan. And, he's, disappointed in that trade because, one, I mean, he's a big Rockies fan and learned to enjoy Arenado play, and he started collecting them. And now he's maybe a bit of a crossroads of, does he want to continue collecting Arenado cards? And if so, I think he had mentioned that maybe he's only going to collect him in a Rockies uniform. So that's one way, depending on who the player is, to continue your player collection of that player, but maybe just focus on him on a certain team, in a certain team's uniform. Ken Griffey Jr. comes to mind. I think, for even though he has his roots in family and stuff, it was a big move for him, I believe, to move to Cincinnati. I think a lot of collectors just see him as a Seattle Mariner. And personally, I would prefer to have a Griffey card in a Mariners uniform versus a Cincinnati Reds uniform. Again, that's just me personally. Not that I PC Griffey, but if I were, especially if I started collecting him as a Mariner, I may say, hey, just like Ken, I'll keep collecting Griffey, but only for cards in a Mariners uniform. There are others, and again, sort of like Ken, who primarily root for a team and follow a certain player or players that have been on that team for a while. And if they get traded or sign with a different team through free agency, it may not bother them that much. They're more of a team collector. And yeah, while that player was on the team, maybe they collected a lot of that player, but now that that player has moved on, they'll just go on to collecting another player from their favorite team, and maybe that player collection doesn't grow much at all. So that's another thing that may happen. On the other side, and I'm bringing up here Nate, Tops 85401, and Eric, Oakland A's 915, and I guess you can throw myself into it, that you may not have a tie to a certain team, although I think Nate roots for the Giants, and Eric roots for the A's. But with that notwithstanding, they're pretty much all in on their player. Now, I don't know how long Nate and Eric have been collecting Bonds and McGuire, but my guess is they have plenty of cards of them in different uniforms, and that's okay with them. Now, they may like cards, like Eric may prefer cards with him in an Oakland A's uniform, but won't pass on a card in a Cardinals uniform, so to speak. So for me, I really didn't have that dilemma, sort of. When I decided to start collecting Wade Boggs, it was 1998-ish. Well, he had already moved from Boston to New York and was with Tampa Bay. So he was already on his third team when I decided to collect him. So when I decided to collect Wade Boggs, it didn't, when I made that decision, it didn't really matter to me what team he was featured on. Now, do I enjoy cards with him in a Red Sox uniform the most? Yes. But for me, if I get a card, again, my personal goal is to get as many different cards of Wade Boggs as I can. So that means there's going to be some in a Tampa Bay uniform, there's going to be some in a Yankees uniform, and there's some in a Red Sox uniform. But for me, Wade will always be, and you can probably see behind me, predominantly a Red Sox player. I'm glad he got a World Series with the Yankees, but he will forever be a Red Sox to me. And I think Wade could probably say that in his heart, he's always a Red Sox, and they did retire his number, which was a great honor. But getting away from focusing on Wade Boggs here. So, there's different ways, and it all depends on how passionate you are about that particular player. Is it because you like the player because he's on the team that you really root for? And if he leaves, that's okay. Sad or, disappointing or whatever. But that may mean, okay, I'm not going to collect any more of that player, and you move on to something else. You may, like Ken, may still want to collect Arenado cards because you really like him as a player. But if you hate the team he's going to, and I gather that Ken does not like the Cardinals, he will probably never buy a card of Arenado in a Cardinals uniform. But he may pick up additional ones that he doesn't have in a Rockies uniform. And then you get like Nate and Eric, and I can name others that are player collectors that don't mind that if their favorite player is pictured in a different uniform, because it's almost a given. If you're collecting a specific player and that's your focus, it is extremely rare these days, and I can't remember the last player maybe who retired to have played their entire career. That's a good trivia question. Who was the last player when they retired play their entire career with one team? I'm not sure if I know what that answer would be. There probably aren't, too many, especially in today's game, because you got trades, you got free agency, all that stuff. I know there were a lot of Red Sox fans when Mookie Betts left that were really disappointed. For me, again, when I pick up a Mookie Betts card in a pack or something like that, I'm more excited to see him in a Red Sox uniform than I am in a Dodgers uniform. I wish him the best, but I don't know. For me, certain players are associated with certain teams. And this isn't just a modern player phenomenon. Now, while it didn't happen as often in the past, you could get, and one that just comes to mind is Roger Maris. Now, I believe for the most part, Roger Maris's most, famous years and stuff was with the Yankees, but he also played for the Cardinals, I believe. I think, and possibly even another team. I'm not sure, but just Roger Maris came into my head right now. I'm sure there are maybe some collectors out there that, unless they're a really passionate Roger Maris fan, was his rookie card with the Indians? Anyway, I'm getting off track here. But for Roger Maris, they may only want to collect cards of him as a New York Yankee, for example, and that's fine. And maybe not go their entire player run. I would suspect maybe players like Nolan Ryan, who I think played for 3-4 teams, something like that. That if you are into Ryan and want to do a player run and all that stuff, yeah, you're going to get cards of him on multiple teams, and you're not going to be bothered by that. So again, this isn't meant to be a video of telling you what to do, because who am I to tell you what to collect? It just to hopefully make you think, or if heaven forbid your player that you're really into, and there are some that are really invested. I don't want to use the word invested just in terms of just money, but not speculation and stuff, but invested in some of these younger players that in a year, 2, 3, 4, they may get traded. So that's something to think about when you want to start a player collection. Are you starting a player collection because he plays for your favorite team? Because if so, you'd want to think about what would happen if that player no longer is on my favorite team. So do you want to spend a lot of time, money, effort into collecting a certain player if you're only tied to them is because they play for your favorite team? Or is it a player that, regardless of who they play for, you admire them, you think they're great, whether it's a current player, in those cases, I think you would have a longer collection, a longer term collection, if you invest more in the player, regardless of the team, versus a player on your favorite team. So again, maybe it's just a little, not telling you what to do, maybe it's slightly advice if you're starting off or considering a player collection. Again, is it more because of the team that you root for, or is it because of the player that you like? So hopefully a little food for thought for you on a Friday evening. So let's end this video, as I normally do, with some trivia. And the trivia question from my previous video, and I believe there was only one correct answer. I think I double checked all the comments to the video, and if I'm right, kudos to one of the newest inductees to the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame, Rick, Vintage Oddball Cards. I believe he was the only one to get this question right. So the question was, Hank, with 755 home runs, and Tommy Aaron, who had 13 home runs, hold the record for most homers by two brothers in MLB history with 768. What pair is second? And this was a tough one. I don't think I'm almost guaranteed I would not have gotten this one. But the answer is the Murrays with 508. Eddie, who hit the vast majority of them with 504, and his brother Rich, who had 4. Now, there were some good guesses. There were several of you that guessed the DiMaggio brothers. I'm not sure what their total was, but that definitely has to be up there as well. I may have actually guessed the DiMaggio brothers, because I know Dom DiMaggio had a pretty long career. I don't think he had the pop that Joe had. But anyway, That was the answer. Eddie freaking Murray and his brother Rich. So here is the new trivia question for this video. And the question is, the Baseball Hall of Fame opened on June 12th, 1939. That summer, the first telecast of an MLB game aired. Which two teams were playing? So, obviously, I was not around in 1939. I may have been able to guess one of the teams. I probably would not have gotten both. Let's see how well you do. I will have the answer for you in my next video. That's all I have for you. As always, thank you. Have a good weekend. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.